Good evening and welcome to the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 15th. And if I may, I'd like to start the meeting out with a moment of silence before we move on to our next items. We've lost three individuals here this last few days, and so one of them would be for Dale Dunham, who was the husband of former Mayor Bonnie McClung Dunham. The other one was the father of our immediate past city manager, Laura Schneidman, left to be with her family, and her dad passed away the last day or so. And Alan Palmer, father of Cameron and Kevin Palmer, husband of Adora, who was very involved in the community. And then Frank Voss was a classmate of mine. And so just a quick moment, and then we'll continue on with business, please. Thank you on their memory. So at this time, we will have roll call vote, please.
What am I voting on?
Roll call.
Oh, here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you, and may we please have the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, we do have some proclamations and presentations to make. And the first one will be very special for our Half Moon Bay Cougars. And it looks like there are a few of them here in the room with their families, and they've all worked so hard and they should be home doing their homework, but they're coming out tonight to receive a little award. And I know the three Cougars up here, we always did our homework on Tuesday nights. Anyhow, it's a great honor for us to recognize all your hard work and energy, and to bring home an award and recognition for all of yourselves this evening. So at this time, I would like to present them all and their coach with a plaque for their winning. We'll keep the bees over on this side for now. We got stung enough already. We don't need to get stung anymore. Thank you. So Jeff, coach, and your assistant coach and your players, this is a certificate of achievement in recognition for outstanding achievement the City of Half Moon Bay does hereby congratulate and commend the Half Moon Bay High School Boys Soccer Team 2014 Central Coast Section Champions. So congratulations to all of you. You're welcome to say a few words.
I would like to thank the City Council for acknowledging this for us. This is my assistant coach, Jim Vega. This is Thomas Simons. This is David Villaferte. It's hard to say his name. Christian Castaneda and Carlos Hernandez. A lot of my guys are at tournaments right now, playing in Dallas Cup and Cupperman State Cup, so they all couldn't be here, but I appreciate everything you guys done for us. So thank you very much.
Go Cougars. And the next one I had was for our American Legion's anniversary, and I don't know if anyone is representing them here at the moment. Charlie was supposed to be here. So we will, it's the Coastside American Legion's post-80s, 80th anniversary, excuse me. And they do some fine work for all the veterans out there in Princeton. And so we'll make sure we get it. And I know he's been hounding me for some giant pumpkin seeds, so I'll include those in there with him. I didn't give him the $200 ones. So at this time, mayor's announcements and community service activities. So I guess the announcements, there was a couple here. for upcoming events. The biggest one, and the Vice Mayor could help me along with it, will be Sunday, this Sunday, April 20th. We're having a triathlon on the coast, if anyone has not been aware of that yet, but it's a swim, bike, and run event that was normally held on the South Bay and San Jose area, put on by a coordinator down there that does a great job putting things together, and I know he's worked closely with our Sheriff Lieutenant Muncie and the Highway Patrol and all the staff involved in all the proper permits, and so it's going to be a lot of people here with the Easter Bunny on Sunday morning, so, but it'll be early, and I think they're going to get in the water, out of the water, and hopefully spend some time in our wonderful coastside and city, and then be heading back home. So that's coming up this Sunday. And Friday, April 25th, we will be having the Council of Cities meeting here at Sam's Chowder House, where all of our fellow council members come to the coast for a dinner and for an educational program regarding, Vice Mayor, what is our program? You're part of that there. Would you mind making a quick comment on that?
In the past few years, as you know, there's been some of the prisoners have been let out and they've been absorbed into the county. And so we're having an update by the chiefs of the county to let us know how that is going and what we in the community can do or help to make their transition back into society beneficial for all.
Thank you. And then the other one, which is coming up here May 3rd, Saturday, it's happening very quickly, is the first Half Moon Bay Farmers Market will be opening next door here. So we're getting very excited about that and looking forward to seeing everyone there and getting all those young folks eating properly out there, which I'm sure they do. And got some more work coming here. And then it's a little early, but our May 15th youth seminar is very, very important to all of us here on the whole coast side. So we want to make sure that we get as many participants as possible. This is put on by the different leagues in the area here in the county and the Sheriff's Department, and so we're really looking forward to a large turnout. And it's really an educational morning, and we want to get all those people that really need to get a little extra education on the future of youth in our area. So, and then a fellow council member here reminded me of the big Easter egg hunt Saturday morning. Would you like to?
It's going to be held at Cunha School rather than at the high school. So any of you that would have little siblings, make sure that you go. But I would urge you to be there at exactly 11 o'clock. By 11:05, all the candy's gone. I've never seen candy disappear off of a field so quickly. So, but it's a great thing. It's put on by Boys and Girls Club and Rotary Club.
Thank you. So I think that's all I have for upcoming events here. And so we'll move on to report out of closed session. Our city attorney, Mr. Condotti.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Muller, members of the City Council. There were two matters in this evening's closed session, which began at 6 p.m. First involved real property negotiations, and that concerned the property at 2450 South Cabrillo Highway. Council received a report from its negotiator on that matter. There was no reportable action. The second involved two items of potential litigation involving significant exposure to litigation. The council received a report from City Attorney's Office, and there was no reportable action on those items as well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. City Council reports, former Mayor, Councilmember Alifano.
Thank you. Probably the highlight of the last couple weeks was Farm Day. I almost didn't get my wife in because the tickets were sold out. And it's just a great event every year. And I know everybody that goes there says the same thing. And it's really nice to see all the people getting their awards for all the hard work. And I think the funniest award was when Jack McHugh thought his wife was getting the award, and it turned out it was actually for Jack. So I don't think he'll ever trust his wife to tell him anything in the future. And then in the morning on the 15th, we had a meeting over in the DOC with the Coastside Collaborative. And this is a group of about, there was probably 25, 35 people And it's the Boys and Girls Club, it's Coastside Hope, it's every organization you can think of, SAL, the Sheriff's Athletic League, our people from, that runs the organization here, the YMCA people with the new summer camp, and they talk about all the things that are happening for kids on the coast mainly, and it's amazing. I think the sad part is the families on the coast don't know enough about this. And the one thing I'd like to see if the city can do is maybe we can help put together a website where all of these organizations can put their activities there and the people in town can find out what's going on for their kids. Because as we know, kids that are busy don't get in trouble. And then the last thing was the progress seminar this last weekend. And I find that a really helpful seminar. It's mostly elected officials with some people from private industry and so forth. But the ideas you hear about, probably the big one was right here in San Mateo is Supervisor Groom is putting together something called a Big Lift. And the highlight was, they said that kids learn to read by 3 and third grade, and after the 3rd grade, they learn through reading. And it was amazing how many of our children in the county can't read at a 3rd grade level in 3rd grade. So this program is going to be working or spending money to try and get our 3rd graders up to the right level, because the success rate for these kids is way higher when they're at the right reading level. So it was a very interesting seminar and worthwhile.
Thank you. Councilman Kwolchek.
Thank you. Just a couple things to report on. So I also participated in the Progress Seminar, which was held in Monterey. It's a gathering of all the San Mateo County elected officials and people involved in organizations in the community. And through that seminar workshop, also saw a lot of our friends, Assemblyman Gordon and Senator, I'm blanking. Jerry Hill, sorry. So, the reason I bring that up is one of the most interesting sessions I attended was a discussion, a forum held by Senator Hill and Assemblyman Gordon, where they discussed kind of the state of things in Sacramento, and where Senator Hill shared that whereas he was once one of 40 state senators, now he's one of 37. And talked in a very frank way about the situation with Leland Yee. And it was very interesting because he didn't pull any punches. There wasn't a lot of, well, we'll see what's going to happen. It was more so, we're really going to put ourselves out there and make sure that these things don't happen again and be really transparent. And I appreciated a frank discussion on it. And I wanted to share that with the community as well, that there was no hedging in that. There was obvious recognition of there being a problem and just how unacceptable that was and is, and that they're going to work through making sure is enough transparency in place going forward. The Big Lift Conference on Education was something I also participated in, as well as a lengthy discussion on water and the fact that we don't have enough, which is just mind-boggling to me. But I believe our reductions in Northern California are going to be in the order of 10%, and some other communities are in the order of 30% over the next year, and I think we'll expect to see more on that. And then the other thing I was most involved in since our last meeting was the series of library stakeholder meetings. It was pretty refreshing to have a group of interested people come together and talk about their vision for the new library. The most recent session, we had a session with stakeholders at the DOC and a session with the public at the library, covering everything from what we want the interior space to look like, what we want the exterior space to look like, and how we can build upon previous work that was done to rebuild a library for Half Moon Bay. I'm super excited about this, and particularly excited about talking about how we're going to finance it and have some good, well, actually not so excited about that, but looking forward to getting this done for our community because we're long overdue. And then with that, I'll just let the community know there are some library meetings coming up. It's not until May. We had, I guess, the first 3 of 16 public input sessions regarding the library. The next sessions are going to be, there's a community kiosk at the May 3rd Farmers Market, an open house at the library on May 8th, Thursday, May 8th, and another community meeting at the library the same evening, May 8th. So open house during the day, and another community planning session in the evening. And those are the big things I worked on in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Councilmember Patridge.
I attended the Transportation Authority meeting, and sadly reporting that Art Lloyd, who has served San Mateo County for 45 years in transportation, has resigned from all his posts. He is in failing health, so he will sorely be missed because he has so much history, especially with Caltrain and all that. Just wanted to announce too that on April 23rd, it's Rider Appreciation Day with Samtrans and Caltrans. We did approve our allocations for Measure A. We approved an additional $138,000 for another project that was right on the border. I initially voted no to give more money out of the fund because it was going to take it out of next year's allocation. However, Mike Scanlon, who's the executive director, indicated that that money would come out of the Lehman Brothers settlement that the county received. And I'm really proud to say San Mateo County was one of the few counties that did go after them to get their money back, and they were successful in getting some back. Also, wanted to report that we did have quite a discussion on the shuttle program, and I continually ask about getting more shuttles here, but we have to have somebody that's in the lead to take over the shuttles in order for us to qualify. And so I'm not sure, I'm going to talk with Chuck Harvey because I'm not sure how we're going to do that. We don't have any kind of agency that can do that for us unless it's senior co-siders or somebody, you know. So then I also attended Farm Day. As Alan said, it was packed. It was sold out. It was really nice. Also went to the IDS Crab Shapino fundraiser. They're trying to raise funds to pay for their new roof on their building. I did attend the library kiosk at New Leaf. It's very exciting to see how many youth organizations were there. I think there was like 20-something people that provide services for youth in different organizations. So it was quite a turnout at New Leaf. There was no parking, you know, and it was really packed there. So those are things that I did.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Well, to give you a little more details on what's coming up this Sunday as well as Easter, the 22nd annual Silicon Valley International Triathlon. And as the mayor had mentioned, this has been held in Morgan Hill for the last 20-odd years. And part of the triathlon is the swim portion, and they're unable to do that in the reservoir due to the drought. So that decision was made to shift in late February. And really, this happened very quickly coming over here. A lot of people cooperated very well, definitely city staff in helping with permits of that, but also with the county and the sheriffs. Now, how it's going to be, there's a point, starts out at the harbor at Pillar Point from the Half Moon Bay Yacht Club, and there's a swim in the harbor, point 93, and then from there they'll jump on their bikes and make almost a 29-mile loop. They'll go down the highway, and this starts at 7:15, 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll go down the highway, go up through Higgins Canyon, make the loop, come back around, hit the Johnson House, and then they'll run down from the Johnson House, go down Seymour, through the Coastal Trail, and when they get to about Kelly Avenue, they'll turn back around. That's a 6-mile run, and they'll end up back at the Johnson House. So that should be over early in the morning. They have about 800 participants. I think there is room for a few more. A lot of them are coming in for the weekend, going to restaurants, staying in our hotels, so that's valuable to us. But if you are interested in jumping into this, I think it's about $140. But the website would be the Silicon Valley International Marathon in Half Moon Bay. You can find out all the information. So if you want to come out early in the morning and watch any of that, there's lots of views. You can sit by the harbor. You could pull up your chair, ride your bike down the coastal trail, and see them. So there's a lot just for the runners, but a lot of views for us as residents to see as well. And since Charlie Hall is not here, and I know he would love for us to let everyone know, along with their 80th birthday at Post 747 or 474, they're going to have a dinner in the afternoon that starts at 4 o'clock, and it's $10. I believe it is ham in honor of Easter and all the other little sides that go along with that. And also to pick up some things that were already mentioned about the library, with the 3 meetings that were held last week and the open house, we had over 400 responses from people on just their favorite memory about the library, what they enjoyed and hoped children can as well, and what they would like to see in a library. So as Councilmember Kowalczyk mentioned, there's another dozen opportunities coming up, a farmer's market, and definitely the open house, and there's always some cards at the front desk at the library that you could write down what you'd like to see in the library too. So we can just gather all that and incorporate it in, so we can build our library on the coast for the future.
Thank you. I will try to be brief. Thank you for your patience. And as you can see, as council members, we do other things too. We don't just come to this meeting. But quickly, I also attended the Farm Day, and it's just amazing how hard and how strong all the volunteers work. It's just absolutely remarkable, and I think that's very, very special, like all of you work so hard. The Musey family, the Dooley family, and the Jack McHugh surprise. Then I attended the Council of Cities meeting in San Carlos, where I kind of spoke about urban contract work and what we're all doing in contract services with the cities, and met some very interesting new people. One was running for a Superior Court judge, and one is running for controller, I believe. Yes. And then I met with Supervisor Horsley also a couple of times, and they're doing the beginning of the negotiation, which is very positive, and they're looking for the City of Half Moon Bay support, which we will be working on a staff report, I believe, soon, regarding that Surfers Beach Trail over there. It's pretty nasty, and so there's a lot of agencies involved, but at least Half Moon Bay will be working towards participating in it, I believe. And then attended the ribbon cutting for the San Mateo County Parks at Devil's Slide, which is absolutely spectacular, amazing. They got a wonderful day. Vice Mayor was with me also. And it's a pretty good hike up that 1.5 miles up that hill. You know, we have driven it for millions of times, and you know, when you walk it, it's kind of sloped and it's kind of awkward to walk. I think the key to that is the parking is an issue, in my opinion. And council member here and our Pacifica friends are nodding their heads. It's kind of dangerous coming out of the tunnel southbound. People are trying to cross there, so they have to work on that. Supervisor Horsley and I also discussed the possibility of a future shuttle from Half Moon Bay. I know Pacifica's working on that. How do we get people on the weekends in and out of there safely? But it is a spectacular, spectacular area there. Also, it's Crap Chipino World Time, but I went to the La Honda one for the Volunteer Fire Department. It's a Bill Glass Memorial one up there to raise funds. And then the County Farm Bureau had their annual meeting here recently, and John Giusti, a local farmer, was chosen Farmer of the Year, well deserved. And then last Thursday, I spoke to a group of individuals throughout Northern California that were very involved in organic agriculture, organic materials, and I spoke about urban agriculture. That's where my urban came in earlier, on you know, how do we commingle all these operations into, along with our neighbors of schools and churches and houses, which is very important to all of us. So And I think that concludes my activities there. We will go next to City Council's, City Manager's report, and then I will make a couple quick comments for our visitors here, and then we will continue on the meeting.
So just a couple of things. First, I've been acting interim city manager for just a little over 2 weeks. I hope that transition has been going well. I've been trying to meet with as many people from the community as I possibly can. And if anybody wants to get on my calendar, let me know, and I'm willing to talk to everybody and to learn more about the community. Staff is working hard. I appreciate all their work in making sure everything continues forward through the transition period. So I thank everybody for that. Other issues that are going on, there was a filming of a GMC truck commercial yesterday. It was done mostly out of the harbor. The security was provided by CHP, so our sheriff's department was not aware of that. I heard that there were some issues during rush hour. So we will try and continue to work with our law enforcement and our other neighbors to try and understand exactly what's going on around our city. The other issue that's coming up is Earth Day is coming up, and on Tuesday, April 22nd, between 9 and 1 p.m., people can pick up 2 cubic yards of compost for their yard and garden at City Hall. So if people need compost, we will have it at City Hall on April 22nd from 9 to 1. Thank you.
It's good to grow giant pumpkins with. Lieutenant in charge is here. Would you like to make a brief comment about we do get blamed for a lot of things that don't really happen in the city limits. Lieutenant, would you like to make a comment on that filming yesterday briefly, or any other important information you'd like to share? You're welcome to come forward. Yeah, and it's a good opportunity. This is our lieutenant in charge of San Mateo Coastside, all of us, and the city of Half Moon Bay, Lieutenant Muncie.
Sorry. We were aware that the filming was going on. We just weren't sure the impact that it was going to have. CHP took over the security for it.
And you're well prepared for Sunday morning, I understand?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for the contact information.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of the lieutenant in charge? Okay, thank you for being here tonight. Okay, before we move on to public forum, what I'd like to do is, first thing, assure all our friends here that we never had any intent to harm our wonderful bee world. Okay, number one. Our city attorney over here, if you look closely, it was a cleanup of old ordinances that needed to be cleaned up and faced with, updated. So, straight up, I host many hives, okay? So, number one, I would never do anything to harm our wonderful bee friends and world. They have enough issues out there, let alone going through government issues, but we do need to get that straightened out within the city limits. Number two, going back in history, and I forgot the darn picture because I was involved in a national referendum in America for the floral industry called Promoflor, and our spokesperson was Buzz the Bee. And trust me, I had to travel with Buzz the Bee, and it really attracted the female sex around them, let me tell you. Everyone wanted to check out Big Buzz, you know, and so we could tell you a story about that. But to make sure that you understand that we are going to be working closely with all of you and a couple spokespersons. So tonight, for sure, we will be pulling item 4. I even thought if we could just pull the B issue, we would clean up the other ones, but we cannot do that. Our city attorney is informed yet. So we're going to pull that in the future here very soon. But on the other hand, city attorney and I talked, we will let you comment at public forum since we will be pulling it. Normally, we do not comment on at public forum on any item that's on the agenda. That's kind of a policy. So tonight we will be pulling item 4. So is that correct, city attorney? Then they're allowed to speak at the public forum on any item.
Yes, just to be clear, the item 4 is what's referred to as our omnibus ordinance or our 2014 cleanup amendments to the municipal code. The recommended action is to pull that item from this evening's agenda. We will bring the ordinance back for adoption at the next meeting, first week in May. However, we will omit the beekeeping chapter from that so that we'll have more time to work with our beekeeping community on revisiting the proposed regulations. And if we bring the ordinance back at a time in the future, it will be a modified version that's developed in cooperation with the beekeeping community.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, there was never an intent to, we had unintended consequences, let's just say. But I think this is a classic example where the public has responded and the city council has responded back to you in a proper manner. I know a lot of you sent emails, and my queen bee, vice mayor here, has responded to a lot of them because I'm really out trying to make a living like all of you. And Mr. B, Gary, he and I have a number of conversations all the time, and hopefully can consider him still a friend. So we will go ahead with the public forum, and I just have 2 cards at this time. And yes, Councilman Kowalczyk.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. So I want to thank everybody for their correspondence and writing to the council. I know many of your emails were copied to all of us and phone calls and whatnot. And I just want to say thank you, because I did not receive any unhelpful or unproductive communications. It was all clear, thoughtful. We want to work together. Here's our opinion. This is important to us. And I can let you know that not all communities within Half Moon Bay are so polite and gracious and wanting to work together. And oftentimes we're on the receiving end of impolite and often improper dialogue. And I found it constructive and refreshing, and just want you to know I really appreciate it. So thank you.
So I think what Councilman Kowalczyk is trying to say is that we were dealing with honeybees and not wasps, okay? So thank you for that. Right? And Vice Mayor, want to make a comment?
I think it's going to be one of those nights of puns.
Well, once in a while life you get stung, right? And so we got a little sting here tonight there.
Did John throw the city attorney under the hive?
Oh, no. And I was going to make a comment similar to Councilmember Kowalczyk, because I had the opportunity to respond a little. He was probably a little more polite in saying what he did, but truly, all the letters that came were constructive and they were thoughtful. And especially with one particular item that we're dealing with in the community, we've been threatened. And in ugly ways. And it's hard to have conversations with people, but we realize that this wasn't what you wanted, and I just want to truly thank you for the constructive comments and just how do we make this better, because that's what we're all here for, to live together. So I cannot comment enough about it, and so thank you for mentioning that as well.
Very good. So again, the way I kind of chair a meeting is I look at my cards here and I look at who would probably have more authority than the other person. So we're going to go with, no, I mean in the organization. So Nikki Irvin is the Bee Legal Task Force Beekeepers Guild of San Mateo County. So we would like you to come first, and then Gary, you will be following her. Push the little button.
Okay. Yes.
We normally give you about 3 minutes.
I won't take that long. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that bees and beekeeping is something that is seriously important to you. We understand that, and we indeed do want to work with you. I wanted to let you know that our guild has also been addressing this issue in the last year, and we formed this Bee Legal Task Force. We've done quite a bit of research. We've researched the ordinances throughout the county. We have researched different approaches to beekeeping in our cities, and we would be very happy to meet with you in order to discuss the results of our research and the kinds of contacts and ideas that we've been able to put together. I think we're at a very good point. So, if you'd caught us a year ago, we wouldn't have been so well prepared. But we'd very much like to meet with you if we could as you go ahead thinking about this issue. And then I just wanted to mention that, as you can see, there's a huge amount of interest in this issue. It just keeps growing since colony collapse disorder in 2006. We have a huge number of beekeepers now, and we've had a great turnout, and I just wanted to share for the public record who came tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And Tony, you'll have her contact information along with and card right there. And now, Mr. Half Moon Bay Bee-Man, Gary, or one of them.
I'm just one of them. Well, thank you, Council, thank you. You've stepped up to the plate and taken responsibility, and as always, it's happened with this council. We've always found a resolved problem, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think it's really important that beekeeping is not just a hobby, it is a connection between humans and the insect world. Beekeeping brings people together of all ages and all cultures. I mean, it really crosses the bridges. It helps family and children learn together about nature and what needs to be for the survival of animals, insects, and the food production that's required to feed this world of today. When I was about 12 years old, I was blessed and found a mentor that was about 80 years old that was fantastic. He taught me a lot about honeybees and life, and partially what made me what I am today. I guess what concerns me most is that what we found in most cities is that there isn't a lot of complaints about honeybees. There always can be problems. I mean, they are honeybees, they do swarm, there's always differences between people. But most of the time, those problems can be solved with just talking about it and with educated beekeepers. And I think that's the most important thing, is beekeepers have to be educated. You know, they need water. You don't want them at your neighbor's swimming pool. But we need to make sure as an organization that we help those people make sure that we don't cause problems for neighbors. I mean, none of us deserve to have a problem. So that's part of what I think the San Mateo Bee Guild is all about, is education. And that's an important part of anything in this world, is education. So I just really appreciate that this city took another look at this and was willing to say, hey, maybe we need to get a different viewpoint on what's going on. So you've always solved my problems before. I appreciate it, and let's keep that going forward, and the great Half Moon Bay that it's been, and I'm sure we'll find solutions. Thank you all.
Thank you. He mentioned education. Gary gave my grandchildren an education this past January, and I don't know if we're supposed to share that with all your expert friends around you.
No,
but
that's okay.
I was hooking up a piece of equipment, and it had a big swarm on them. And who do I call? Thank goodness I have his number. I call Gary. And Delfina Lorenzo are there, and they're up there, and we're all standing back. And Gary said, come here. And he gets my grandson's hand, who's 5 years old, and sticks it in the swarm. And I tell you what, I've been a farmer for 68 years, or thought I was going to be a farmer for 68 years. I've never ever seen that in my life. That was just remarkable. Pulled it out, boy, all smiles. I have pictures on the phone for the family, for history. Delfina, same thing. Delfina pulled out. I think she had a little bit of fingernail polish. She's 8, and she got a little bit of a sting on there, but she didn't cry too much. But it was just a great learning experience, and I use that incident often, telling people how wonderful all of you are, and how we can learn something every day from somebody. So who would have ever thought? So thank you all, and I know you're all here in attendance, and you're more than welcome to sit through our wonderful meeting, but I know you'll have more bees to keep. So thank you again, and we will work together, and we will move on with our agenda. So you're more than welcome to leave. Thank you. So at this time, we will move on to the consent calendar.
I would move for approval of the consent calendar, items 1 through, I think it's 8,
With pulling.
with pulling number 4.
I'll second.
So where you have a consent calendar motion and second, that items on the consent calendar will, except for number 4, will be approved if so voted on, and number 4 will be pulled to a later date. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, so ordered. Okay, moving on here. What item of my agenda here?
Number 9.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going on to item 9. Let me just get caught up here a little bit. And yes, street maintenance. Adopt a resolution establishing street maintenance criteria. Staff presentation, please. Dante?
Before we do that, do we want to do item number 8? Oh, introduction of an ordinance? Or do we want to do that after?
No, I apologize here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so we will, at this time, open a public hearing and staff presentation on item 8. Is that correct, team?
Yes. I'll make this very brief. The item before you is an introduction of an ordinance to amend Chapter 1806, which pertains to the R1, R2, and R3 zoning classifications, to delete paragraph 5 from subsection D of section 1806.025. What that section does is it establishes the ability to authorize convalescent care facilities and general daycare facilities in the R2 and R3 zoning districts in the city of Half Moon Bay with a use permit. However, that subsection, paragraph 5, establishes a 2-year permit limit on the convalescent care facilities. So in Half Moon Bay, you can obtain a permit to establish a convalescent care facility in a R2 or R3 district with a use permit, but it's only valid for 2 years. And the code further authorizes the Planning Commission to extend that for a total of an additional 2 years. The recommended action is to delete the 2-year limit because as it is, it's problematic from a legal perspective under the federal Fair Housing Act, and so we look at that section as vulnerable to a potential legal challenge. So it's a very simple amendment. It's to make the code more consistent with federal housing law, and the recommended action is to introduce the proposed ordinance.
Thank you. I have no public comments on this item, so I could close the public hearing and then bring it back to the council.
If there are no comments, I'll make a motion. By motion, introduce an ordinance amending Title 18 zoning, Chapter 1806, residential land use, R1, R2, R3, to delete paragraph 5, 2-year permit from subsection D, convalescence facilities and daycare, general, of section 18.06.025, use regulations.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, so ordered. Moving on to item 9.
John, can I make a comment
Yes.
before we move on? I just personally want to acknowledge and thank our city attorney, Tony Condotti, for having had so many of the things that we've been working on resolved and passed at the Coastal Commission. So we just really want to acknowledge you, Tony, for that great job. Thank you so much.
You know, if it's appropriate, could I go back to a brief city attorney report with respect to the next item on the agenda to comment on your recent travels to Coastal Commission? Is that appropriate at this time? And recognize staff? You're the lawyer.
It's fine with me.
I can, it's my privilege, right?
Yes, it is. That would be the mayor's discretion. I'm happy to report that at a meeting at the Coastal Commission last week, the Coastal Commission approved several items that have been pending for quite some time. One was the establishment of use permit requirements for cell tower or wireless telecommunication facilities. And prior to that, believe it or not, in Half Moon Bay, we had no regulations applicable to the establishment of cell towers, although the perception had been that it would be impossible to get a cell tower permitted in Half Moon Bay. We had no regulations at all, which made the city very vulnerable under federal law should any wireless company come in and want to set up shop pretty much anywhere in the city. So that was a very positive step forward. We will be bringing that back to the council for some modifications recommended by the Coastal Commission. Also approved by the Coastal Commission was an ordinance that establishes a use permit requirement for any on-sale alcohol establishments in commercial zoning districts in the city of Half Moon Bay. Prior history has been that some businesses have set up shop and not been good neighbors, particularly in areas where there are nearby residences, and this regulation gives us a little bit more flexibility to deal with those. And then a significant step forward was after 5 years, the Coastal Commission approved the coastal development permit for our citywide drainage maintenance plan over the appeal of a local resident. That was an appeal filed back in January, and the hearing that was at the Coastal Commission last week was for the determination of whether or not the appeal, which was 24 pages of very technical claims and allegations, the issue was whether or not the appeal raised a substantial issue of compliance with either the city LCP or the Coastal Act, and the Coastal Commission staff recommended, and the Coastal Commission agreed, that the appeal raised no substantial issue, which is tantamount to finding that the appeal was essentially frivolous. So that was a very positive step forward. And then lastly, what I would like to just clarify is that I'm happy to take full credit for all of those, but the credit doesn't belong to me. There was a lot of staff work, a lot of very many hours spent on the part of planning staff and assistance from biological consultants and other experts to get these minor, modest steps forward approved, but it is a step forward, and so we're proud of that. And I want to give a lot of credit to the hard work of the staff that went into it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to report on that.
Thank you. I think that whenever we can come out with the positive results with Coastal Commission, it's number one, that shows we're trying to do the right thing, I think, in simple terms. And also the process of time and money and energy put in by everyone involved sometimes in the end proves that we're doing the right thing. So I deeply appreciate it, and I'm glad we remembered to have you comment on that. So I think then we will be able to continue to move forward with cleaning of our ditches. Would you comment on that, please?
Yes, we still are in the process of finalizing a stream bed alteration agreement with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Service, but it's one of those things where, once we get this piece in place, it makes it easier to deal with state fish and wildlife, and vice versa. It wasn't necessarily required that we do it in that order, but it is one step forward, and we're that much closer to being able to maintain most of the drainage channels in Half Moon Bay, with the exception of Roosevelt and Kehoe, and we need to turn our attention to those next, but we did at least make progress on the rest of them.
Thank you very much. So I believe we voted on 8, so we can move on to 9 now, correct? Thank you. So we will go on to item 9.
As soon as we get up item number 9's PowerPoint. Unless you want to do Measure J and then let Scott do streets. No, that's fine. Okay. Just checking.
It's a bit ironic, we're going to do 9 and then 10.
Right.
And they're really very compatible, I believe, correct, council members?
So I will let Dante talk about the establishing a this city street maintenance criteria.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight we're going to talk about a criteria for prioritizing streets to be improved over the next couple of years. Where do I point this? Does it point to it?
Okay.
You want to?
I'll do it.
Okay, great. So as she switches to the next slide, with all of our recommendations, what we try to do is really provide good service to the community, but at the same time, we really want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our investment. And this is true with our pavement and our roads. Next slide. You know, we've all seen this deterioration curve, and I just wanted to kind of remind you that a lot of the recommendations are based on this. The research and experience really show that it's far less expensive to maintain a street than it is to put money into improving a street once it's gotten into a poor condition. Next slide. So in 2011, we began the process of this long-term planning of resurfacing and paving our streets. And we really went through a process of pavement section inventory. All of the streets in the city, we need to take a look at them. We need to determine what level of distress they're in, and we assign numbers essentially to the streets. 0 being very poor, and I'm sorry, 0 being very poor and 100 being perfect, essentially. And we defined repair strategies and costs based on the funding that was identified by council in the CIP and through other funding sources. And we've tested various budget and financing strategies. Next slide. So the current conditions are that we have about 27 miles of streets, and that's not including the HOA maintained streets. But we have 27 miles of roadway that the city maintains. And prior to 2011, the average pavement condition PCI was about 50 out of 100, which is low to fair. And so we really wanted to improve that. And so with the money and investment that the city made since 2011, we were able to make some improvements. And the city has now maintained about 17 miles of the total 27 miles. And currently, if you average all the streets out, we're at about a 67. Which is a high to a fair assessment of all our streets in the city. Next slide. So these, and we'll go through these really quickly. These are essentially just the streets that have been done, and the city divided, the council agreed with the recommendation to divide the city into segments, and we took all of the sections of the streets that were higher priority, that required just maintenance. The orange identifies the areas that were improved over the last 3 years. Next slide. Again, just the areas that have been approved. The red in this one, let's see if it comes out. The red overlay indicates that the street was in a deteriorated state, and it required a little bit more. So you'll see most of the areas are orange, which required kind of slurry seal or cape seal or chip seal, which are basic maintenance. Overlays, asphalt and concrete overlays require a lot more money, a lot more work, essentially. So next slide. Same thing with the yellow in this slide, where we did a slurry seal. Next slide. And then there's just one more slide that you can go. So we've done a lot of work. We've accomplished a lot in the city. And so now what we need to do is a lot of the heavy lifting. And the next slide will kind of identify what's left to do. We have about 10 miles of streets left to do. And most of that work is some of the heavy lifting I'm talking about, some of the major reconstruction that's going to require a lot of coordination with utilities, because there's going to be a lot of work that's going to be happening out in the street. It's going to be a lot of coordination, making sure that the public knows about what we're doing. And so what we need to do, what we are recommending that council do is establish policies for prioritizing streets based on the funding. And so we came up with some recommendations, and I'm going to ask Mo Sharma to actually come up and walk us through briefly the several steps of prioritization and policy, and then we'll talk about next steps.
Like was mentioned earlier, that in those slides that many streets in fair conditions are already rehabilitated or maintained. There are about half a dozen of those streets still remaining. So our recommendation is that higher priority should be given to complete maintenance of the streets in fair condition. So means that taking care of those 6 or 7 streets first. The next recommendation is that for streets which are in real poor condition, mean that they need either major reconstruction or total reconstruction, that those should be given the last priority. And again, it's because the studies have found that the streets which are already in very poor condition, they do need a lot of funds for their repair, and whether that repair is done in year 1 or whether that repair is done in year 5 or 4, the change is not that much. However, if we let go of a street in fair condition for another 4 years, then that street will become kind of a street in poor condition and will need much more funding for its repair. So again, the second criteria is that for streets which are in poor condition, they should be given lower priority. The streets which are in between should be given the priority after the completing the streets in fair condition. And for those kind of streets, we need to again, coordinate the work with the different utilities, because most of those streets will need asphalt overlay. That's a more expensive treatment, and the asphalt overlay does last longer time, and we want to make sure that we don't get street cuts right after we pave those streets. So that's where we will just coordinate with the utility companies. We do know that PG&E have some plans to replace some gas mains. We are also aware that the water department is having some issues with its water mains, so we will coordinate all those with the water as well as the city sewer system also. And the criteria number 4 is that, again, that just like we finished our street maintenance by completing work in one segment at a time, we should also focus on completing those the next phase of the street repairs by the segments. So the benefit of that is that we wouldn't have a contractor kind of moving around from one end of city to other end of city. They can just do more cost effectively just in one segment of the city. That doesn't mean that we will handle only one segment at a time. That depending on our budget, we may be able to do 1, 2, and 3 segments all in one year and the remaining in next year. On criteria number 5, which is next, there is some streets are not built to city standards, and these are the streets which have drainage issues. They also don't have the pavement which is thick enough, and typically it's the responsibility of the fronting property owners to bring the street to level acceptable for city's maintenance, so city could maintain it. And many of those property owners have signed deferred street improvements agreement with the city. So we will then coordinate the work with them, that where they will be doing they will be sharing the cost for the street repairs. Because most of these streets will be again, needing asphalt overlays, we recommend that there should be a street cut moratorium. Many cities have it, and typically those are for about 5 years, that after the city coordinates the work with the utilities, we give the notice right away to utilities also as part of our coordination, that for the next 5 years after city paves, we will not allow street cuts. Of course, there are emergencies, and that we got to give exceptions in those cases. And sometimes also it becomes kind of unavoidable to have a street cut, because let's say there is a new development which was not proposed today and all of a sudden it just comes up. And in that case, there are criteria 7 and 8 that if those street cuts are needed, there will be certain remedies which will be prescribed. And those remedies could be like overlaying a portion of the street, just where the street cut is, or just having, if there are multiple cuts, just overlaying that entire area. There are some grant funded projects which may come up unplanned, and for those there will be again exceptions, that in those cases we would allow the street cuts. And criteria number 9 is that again, public participation, that we just want to make sure there is a program where public is aware of our street maintenance program, and that they can also help us avoid the street cuts, and also be aware that when their street will be taken care of. So that's the criteria staff is proposing.
And in terms of the next steps, we would like for council to consider this criteria tonight. We'll go back and we'll work in the schedule into the CIP, and we'll do the work over the next couple of months and come up with an actual schedule of which streets meet this prioritization and bring that to council for consideration. And we'll be ready to go July 1st when the budget is approved, ready to get started on whatever is the pleasure of council. So tonight, what we're asking for on the next slide is just adopt the resolution establishing the criteria for prioritizing the streets, maintenance for rehabilitation and resurfacing. And that completes my report. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Councilman Kowalczyk.
Actually, more of a comment, if I may. Sorry, another question. So my comment is, so I concur with the criteria. I think that makes sense. But I want to reserve the right that when we come back with a list of streets, that we'll have some dialogue on those priorities, and reserve the right to potentially move some things around. That we have some strong interest in the community, and some are atrocious and might need attention. And we did put some money in the budget with our discretionary funding to address streets. So, but I'm very comfortable with the criteria. But I also, before we say charge and go ahead and start the work, I want to make sure we see the order of the streets.
Any other comments? Councilman Alfallen.
I thought we had kind of agreed that we were no longer going to ignore the really bad streets, even though that's the most cost-efficient way to do it. And I kind of thought we were going to say, okay, gee, if there's 3 miles of really bad streets are going to be very expensive, we would maybe do a mile a year. And then as part of that, we would then by mail notify those people on those really bad streets, hey, you're coming up this next year. By the way, I'm sorry, you're in section number 2. You're not going to be till the next year. So at least people know that we recognize how bad their street is, and we definitely have a plan to address it. And we're not going to make them wait till the very end. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. There will be a significant community outreach and information campaign. Not only when the work is happening where it will impact residents, they need to know about that ahead of time. But I believe that people need some comfort in knowing that, they're going to get to me next year or next quarter. So yes, that will be part of what we'll bring back is the schedule. With regard to the streets that are in a poor condition, that's essentially what we're attacking now. We've almost maintained and resurfaced all of the ones in fair condition. So the next step now, the money will be used to bring the poor condition streets up to standard.
Just following on that, so that is a lot of what Measure J was being used for, as well as you remember you did allocate money out of some of the excess reserves for next year to do those poor streets. And what this is doing tonight is establishing that as money is available, that we of course will do the poor streets, but we don't want to let the fair streets fall into the poor category. So we want to make sure that we keep all of our streets at the fair level when they're there, and then when the money becomes available, that we do those poor streets, and we let people know as that money is available that when their streets are going to get done.
I think that's really important that everyone's talking about here, because you truly are all the real professionals and you bring us this information. We're the elected body that sits back and hears people complain about their streets, and so we have to make sure we give them guidelines of where we're going, when we're going to get there. And as Councilman Kowalczyk mentioned, when we bring this back, this is when we as the elected body can make a debate the issue and see where we could come to some resolution on how to fix it. But I appreciate this guideline. My other quick comment, have we ever gotten any feedback at all from the fire district regarding any streets that have been a concern of theirs in the city limits?
Well, that's what... One of the steps in the process is to collaborate with all agencies. I'm not sure if we've gotten any direct response from the fire district, but we're going to be collaborating with utilities, water district, fire district, everyone, so that we make sure we bring to you a comprehensive plan that you can make a decision on.
Thank you. I think that's excellent. So any further discussion or comments? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion for this resolution.
I move that we adopt a resolution establishing the criteria for prioritizing the city streets for maintenance, rehabilitation, and resurfacing.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? Otherwise, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you. I'm now moving on to item 10, I believe.
And for item 10, I'll let Michelle and Scott.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We're here tonight to talk about Measure J, review revenue and expenditures, present information regarding the November 2014 election, which we'll have that discussion and we'll give you dates regarding if you desire to extend the sales tax. And we'll go ahead and start the presentation. Let's see if I can make this work. So Measure J, as you know, the 1/2 cent sales tax approved by voters, estimated to generate the $3 million. And we came to you and you approved those projects for capital improvement projects. We had the 5 members that you appointed review the expenditures And they confirmed that the Measure J fund allocations were consistent with the plans that you set forth when the Measure J was passed.
Now, the table in front of you underscores the point that was just made, namely that the Oversight Committee examined the use of Measure J funds and found them to be right in line with expectations and plans that were originally put in place when the measure was passed. So you have these groupings by fiscal year and by project. Next slide. Oh, one more, sorry.
There's one more.
I'm looking for the pie chart. Oh no, other direction, sorry. I think I get, okay. And here you just simply, you have pictorial representation of the information found in the preceding table, grouped by how the funds are spent, as well as project and project type. So now Michelle will walk us through some of the specific accomplishments, and I'm sorry that is out of order, so right there.
So accomplish, as you look at your packet, you have the budget, and for fiscal year 13-14, the budget was on repairing the streets. As you know, with the previous report, 17 streets have been worked on, and with tourism was the other funding category for that, and economic development. We are moving forward with implementing the economic development action plan. We've hired a half-time consultant to increase the midweek business, and with some of the events that were coming up, with a farm to table event in July 26th, and date to be determined for a child awareness farm to table event. So those are just some activities that are coming up.
So for the next section, we have the projections of a ballot measure extension. And to facilitate this, we've put together 4 scenarios for you. And again, projected outcomes if Measure J is extended, as well as the various selections. All of these slides, the next 4 are laid out the same, and the blue bars represent general fund revenue impact as a result of debt reduction plans that were put in place. This will continue, as you can see, to grade positive until the full realization in fiscal year 20 and 21. That's consistent with any of the scenarios we present. The red bars represent Measure J, that is Measure J forecasts that are already in place and will end in 2016. The remaining bars represent proposed extension of Measure J with these different variables that I will mention. So next slide, please. The first is a 3-year extension at 1/2 cent. Next, we have a hybrid approach of a 4-year extension at 1/2 cent for 3 years. Another hybrid option is 1/2 cent for 3 years and 1/4 cent for 2 years. And finally, there is an option of a Measure J extension of 1/2 cent for 5 years. And that's the last one, yes. So if the 5-year 1/2 cent option is selected, the extension is selected, this will give us more options regarding debt service for the construction of a new library, as we just heard, completion or near completion of the streets project, Smithfield improvement, as well as other potential projects related to parks. And those examples are listed on the last slide.
So What we are recommending for the fiscal year 14-15, based on the budget recommendations for the capital improvement plan, the 5-year goals and expectations, we indicated that Measure J extension would be required due to limitations of the general fund subsidy. What we're thinking is, if you were interested in extending this measure, that we can continue with the street improvements, the debt service infill for the construction of a new library would be another recommendation, and Smithfield improvements and other potential park projects. So with that, the reason we're bringing this Measure J extension to you now is because it has to get on the general regular election. And so when we look at the dates and project it out, we would like to place this on the November 2014 ballot. Our recommendation for June 17th would be adopt a resolution adding a ballot measure to that election and introduce an ordinance for the ballot measure. July 15th, 2014, we would adopt an enacting ordinance for ballot measure, and it would not take effect until the measure is approved by the voters. August 8th, 2014 would be the last day to call an election for the ballot measure. August 15th would be the deadline that we need to submit filing arguments in favor or against the ballot measure. And August 25th would be the deadline for filing rebuttal arguments. So a date 30 days prior to the election that the date for vote by mail ballot measures are available. I'm sorry about that. So our recommendation is that we review the ballot measure process and the calendar. We provide direction, if you would provide us direction to staff regarding the specifics of the ballot measure, and if it is to be pursued, establish a ballot measure subcommittee.
Thank you. I believe, Councilman Kowalczyk and Councilman Alfano really spearheaded this a number of years ago for us, so I'd give you first opportunity to make comments on it, and then I have some comments I'd like to make on it also, but I'd let you go ahead and start, whoever would like to go first. I appreciate where you two have gotten us on this.
The elder statesman. The alphabet, yeah.
But keep it brief, please.
Okay. Couple of things. When we first talked about parking meters and we got a lot of opposition, and we got some people saying, gee, maybe a small sales tax could work. Naomi popped up and said, I could deal with 3 years and a half penny as opposed to the penny and I think the 7 years for K, which we know didn't work. And I think that resonated well with the community. Well, since then, I think we've demonstrated with the money we brought in, almost $1 million a year, that a couple things have happened. Businesses in town haven't had to shut down because of the half penny increase in the sales tax. I don't know anybody that walks in a store and says, oh, by the way, what's your sales tax? They just ask how much the item is. The second thing is, I think the city's done a very good job of demonstrating where the money's gone, things like streets, libraries, Smithfield, all really good projects. So with all that being said, I would be comfortable looking at possibly another 3-year extension, and I think we just keep it the same. I think we keep it the half penny. I think our goal should be to finish off any of the important projects that, if it was gone, we'd have a hole in the budget of roughly $1 million a year until the bonds are gone. So if this fills in that hole to continue the street improvements, to continue Smithfield improvements, whatever it is we need to continue, and as we are finishing those projects, I'd like to see any remaining funds go into the library fund, which we could start building up. As we wrap up, if in fact we go to another 3 years of Measure J, and it's been successful, if we can utilize that after the bonds are done to handle library financing, I think the community could really buy into that as opposed to other kinds of financing. I don't know that exact answer, but that's kind of the scenario in my head, is to fill in the gap for the next 3 years till the bonds are going away, and then looking to the future, that Measure J could become library financing.
Councilman Kowalczyk?
Yeah, thank you, and well put. I sort of agree, but I think we need to be more deliberate. So I got, although I was getting elbows for doing it, I pulled up the Measure J ballot language, and what I really like about it, first of all, you did a great job on that. I think our community really benefited from that, but it speaks to the ballot language for Measure J. Speaks to what we did. The funds that can be used to enhance our library, increase street maintenance, improve city services, invest in business development and tourism, improve Smithfield, help fund a new Main Street bridge, and improve general city services. We've done all of that and more with the revenues that we got from Measure J. I think it's noteworthy that the Measure J committee said, they reviewed this and said we did all those things. I just want to specifically state all the things that we intended to do with Measure J, that we did do, and that we are doing, and more. I think that's noteworthy. I sent a note this morning to one of my fellow council members saying I'm in general reluctant to look at extending Measure J unless, like when we did it the first time, we had specific intent. Now, while we can't say exactly what we're going to do with the funds, because that changes the voting requirements from a 50% plus one to a 2/3 majority, we stated our intent to use those funds, and we stuck to that very specifically. When I said that I'm in general agreement with Councilmember Alfano, that where I would want to be more specific is much like our ballot language and then some. Before we got to this language, we had a list of projects that we had in mind that were very specific. And I'd like to have us develop a similar list of the things that we have in mind so we can specifically refer to them in a potential ballot measure, and then if approved by our community, then we can go after getting those done. I think it's important to not be vague about these things. I think our community supported us when we said we had this need. We said how we're going to use it, and we stuck to that. The other thing that I feel very strongly about is I would like to not make a decision on the extension tonight. I'd like to see the result of the financial analysis on our new library. Meaning I would like us to, hypothetically, if we extended Measure J, say we put it on the ballot and say half cent for X years, I would want that to allow us to fund a new library. So so our situation is we have we aggressively paid down our debt. And in a short few number of years, I forget the number, but a few years, we will have retired the majority of all of our debt over the Beechwood situation. And we need to sort of bridge until, we need to create a bridge until that can happen. Then we have increased revenue for the city. I would like to look at a strategy whereby an extension of Measure J would allow us to bridge that gap and fully fund a new library without having to go get separate library incremental financing. And I know that's one of the strategies that we talked about for the library, and that's the one I would strongly support. That if we can look at a strategy where a small sales tax increase for a short term would be the thing we need to fund a library, then I would be in favor of that. I think that would work for us. So I guess I'm babbling a lot, but there's two things. One, I want to be specific about the projects. Well, I feel like I've been here long enough I can do this. I want to be specific about the projects that we refer to, and I want to use this as a strategy to fully fund a new library. And I want finance to say we've done the analysis to say that can happen.
Thank you. I think that's most important. I'll get back to you. Just 2019 is what we've all worked really hard on to pay down the bonds. And so 2017 would, if we would do a 3-year extension, would Measure J funds, half cent. So that would definitely fill in your gap, as you've just mentioned, the 2015, 16, 17. And then by 2019, you know, with all the hard work everyone's done, would clean that up. I understand we're still lacking 2 years, but you know, it's a classic example, really and truly. I mean, when you have I don't think I've ever seen this too often in government, where you really have an oversight committee looking at your funds. You guys are experts in this, but it's pretty amazing when they come back and say, you know what, you did the right things.
When you have bond, it's a state mandate.
Yeah.
When you have bond, it's a state mandate.
No, but I'm talking about Measure J.
Well, I mean, it's still money.
Too.
Yeah, it was mandated.
And anyhow, I think a tax is a very challenging thing for everyone, but a tax ensures that the city does the right things in the future for future generations that have been very patient sitting in the back of the room here. That we ensure that we have the services and the future services by paying that tax, and I think that's really important. I don't think it costs, it definitely pays for future generations in the future. So that's my feel on it, and I'm 3 years with specifics I could agree with. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I liked hearing all the comments from most of the council, and I think what's happened is 2 weeks ago was outstanding, where we had $1.3 million, and I don't think 7 years ago we would have ever envisioned us doing that. Between the lawsuit, the double whammy of the recession, to gathering the money, to coming out of this, and you look at all the positive things that are happening. We're in partnership with the school and the Boys and Girls Club to make activities. We've got the new senior campus going on. We've got great momentum and a great group of people with the friends that have invigorated and seen us through. So we're in the financial position to look at, you know, building a library. I know we talked about, you know, possibly a bond, and I was hoping we wouldn't get to that. I think we could have a separate conversation when the finance report comes out on all the different ways that we can finance the library. I think we can go into deeper discussion on that and what we can do. Still paramount in my mind is paying off that 2019 debt. I think we've done a great job at doing that. But continuing to fix the streets is something we've heard loud and clear from people. And doing all the things that we said we would do last time, and it came to fruition, so I think that's important. Definitely, I would support this if funds that can be contributed in the future go to the library. So there's ways that can work out, but I think we need to sit down, and when that financial report comes out, because right now we're looking at what people want in the library, so we're not going to make a Taj Mahal of a library, but what are our needs, what we can sustain without going to bond, and if there's fundraising in the middle of what we can do. I think once we get that big picture, but a library being a component of this, whatever the funds are now, looking at the overall strategy, I think that's the best way to do this.
I'm glad that you brought up the goals of our last strategy on Measure J as far as projects, and we discussed this in our meeting, Ellen and Stuart and I really believe the 3-year half-cent sales tax makes more sense to me after getting burnt the time before by trying to go out longer. I just think the public likes the idea of a short-term half-cent sales tax. For them, there's an end. It's not like we're trying to stay out there a long time. And having our projects and goals be very specific, and, you know, so people can see what we're doing. And I think what's going to really resonate with the public is that we did what we said we were going to do. You know, we did fix the streets. I mean, that has been a long call. Smithfield has been a long call. And, you know, we put some money into the library to start processes and hiring people and things. And so I just think continuing what we said we were going to do and try to get I'm a firm believer of when you start projects, you need to see them to the end. I really don't want us to keep adding projects to this Measure A, because J, I think there are still projects on Measure J we said we were going to do that we haven't done. So it would be great to see those things when we said we were going to do the things with Measure J. Well, that's why I want to see if there's other things that we said we were going to do that we haven't completed. I'd really like to, like Smithfield is going to take quite a bit more money. I mean, we just, doing a study. So if we're going to develop that, we need to be able to, I don't want to see us do studies and then not develop it. So I think, we've got to look at how much money we're going to spend there. So, and that's what I'm saying about completing projects and completing all the streets and stuff, because we're talking about major street repairs now. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Paul, check.
So I do recall specifically when we had our debate and discussion about Measure J initially, we talked about duration. And one of those discussions was that let's ask the community for a short duration, and if we prove that we've done well with those funds, and we need more to finish what we started, then we'll ask for more. And that was the risk we took, because we may come back for more and we may hear no. And so I think there's a lot of merit to that. Yeah. I do want to be more specific about the intent. You have to use the right language. The intent of the funds. I absolutely want them to be community serving. We have a huge need for streets, but if all we do is streets, then I'm not in support of it, because I think we have broader needs across the community. Smithfield is a great example. We're funding a plan for Smithfield, but not improvements to Smithfield. That's a big deal for our community, and I'd like to see our community benefit from that. And then the library being another one. So I could be flexible on this. I wanted to spend the insurance settlement on a new library. And I would like to find a way and we spent that in a different, also good way, right, to pay down our bonds. I would like to have a strategy where we do community projects and fully fund a new library with a half-cent sales tax increase. I don't know if it's feasible, but I would like some analysis on that to tell me whether or not it is. And with that, I would say I would be inclined to support a half-cent over a shorter duration. But before we do that, and we don't have to do that tonight, but I would like to be... June 17th. Yeah, so I'd like us to sort of be a little bit more specific about our intent, use of those funds. For example, we are, I want to just reiterate what we've done so far with the funds that we've been granted from the community, and then what is completed entirely, and what areas do we need to finish what we started. And we did some interesting things last time, right? We said we need to pave the streets. That's important. We also funded promoting tourism, and that's going well for the community in terms of hotel occupancy. We also funded a charging station for electric vehicles on Main Street. That's coming up as a future project. So we didn't just do a small number of projects. That we had a list of projects. We had projected revenue, and based on that projected revenue, we said, here are the types of projects that we intend to pursue. And I think that level of specifics would be helpful, and to move forward with an extension. Sorry.
Yeah, we did that with the capital projects, and said what funds we were going to use and things. So I think that's a good suggestion, Rick, that we do. I don't think anybody up here is not saying that we don't want to know what projects or what we're going to do. I think we're all saying that we want to do that.
One more thing I don't know we haven't brought up. We still have 34 acres to develop and market. And correct me if I'm wrong, the original projection I heard for the library was like, say, 30 million. Now we're down to, say, 20. County picks up half, okay, less. Well, let's go on the high side. Let's just say our half was 10. We have to believe that those 34 acres are going to bring in quite a bit of money. And the way the market's going right now, we need to make sure staff has that high on the list in our next budget, so we know where we're headed with the Cabrillo properties. I would be very inclined to do two things. One, to say to the community, gee, we appreciate what you did with Measure J for 3 years. We need to extend it for 3 more to continue X projects, especially looking at the library. And part of this may be allocated to the planning for the Cabrillo properties, which could end up basically paying for the library at some point.
If I may, I am not going to wait for the development of the Cabrillo properties for the new library, because.
All right, I'll give you the card. Use a credit card, borrow it, and just pay me back.
Global warming will be over, then we'll be in global cooling, and it'll be a whole cycle. And great intention. I agree with the intent, but there's no way I'm going to want to wait for that to be concluded.
I think you kind of understand what we're all trying to tell you, staff, is we WIAC the money, but we don't know exactly where we want to spend it on. But I believe that as we've proven to the community and business community that we didn't waste this money, we gave it back to the community, to all the public to enjoy. So I think that's a very good sales point, number one. And once you come up with specifics for some council members to understand, then I think we'll have a better handle on it. But I believe we're still looking at a half cent 3 years. I mean, we could start with that direction, or am I off base there with some?
That's a great starting point. And if the committee came back and, if staff came back and said, here are some example projects. We came up with those, by the way. There were some example projects, and then we added to them, and we decided what was priority. We said streets were a priority. We said, Smithfield Plan's a priority. So we defined that, and the library is a priority. And so I would want to see some representative projects. What's the projected revenue? I want to know that. And based on that projected revenue, we want to then say, here are some representative projects that we could pursue. And I think if we did that, then anybody who would need a really great headline might have the ability to say, "Oh, city intends to do X, Y, and Z with a potential sales tax extension," hypothetically. So I think that those are the pieces of the puzzle that need to come together. And if staff came back and said, "Yeah, for 3 years, here's the approach, and it lines you up for funding a new library." And you might need another extension to make the library work or not. I want to see all that. I don't want to rush into it, but the 3 year is asking the community to give us short-term support and telling them what we're going to do with it, and then doing it, I think, builds confidence. And I think that short duration is probably smartest.
Now, staff, does this give you good guidelines with your recommendation here? We didn't throw you too many curveballs?
No, what we can do is come back on the June 3rd meeting with a list of projects that could be funded out of Measure J with what their costs would be and timing for those, so that way that would set you up for the June 17th to adopt the resolution and introduce an ordinance. So we would come back on June 3rd with a list of projects and what the cost would be and how we could phase that over a period of time.
Councilman Kowalczyk?
And if I would just like there to state that I'd like there to be some flexibility in there for some discussion among the council to add, subtract, or come up with something entirely different to go in those slots. We were not allowed to do that, but we will anyway.
It may make some sense maybe if we work with the previous Measure J committee to talk about how we go about doing that before the June 3rd meeting, if that would be acceptable.
Scott, staff?
Of course, I'll look to council for that direction.
Just to add to that, we are currently working on a long-term financial plan with the library specifically, and that's part of that. That completely correlates with and will with what's brought forward in June. So that is currently underway, and it will be part of the presentation.
So timing-wise, we'll be able to continue with this item and bring it to a closure in June.
My question, I'm still leery of the timeline here. Because we're saying June 17th, we're going to say we're going to adopt the resolution. So if you bring it to us on the June 3rd meeting and we have more items and things that we need to add, are we going to have enough time to discuss all that and get that done by June 17th? Knowing this council and knowing how we all want our own things to, to be in, could we possibly do it in May? And I think I'm worried about getting you guys more time as far as the final project.
I think we can have a model in place in May.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
you. Again, yes, Councilman Qualcheck.
Sorry, my last one, I promise. And then I would just ask the interim city manager to let's add this to our agenda for council member discussions about our priorities and interests at our regular meetings. Thanks.
Okay, so hopefully we didn't overburden our staff with more work, but that's kind of what councils do to hardworking staff members, so thank you for that. So we do need to,
They just took a recommendation.
recommendation is fine. So there's no vote needed at this time, so thank you on all of that. So now we will move on to item 11. Councilman Qualcheck continues to spend more money. For good reasons. For good reasons. So thank you. This is something that was initiated last year by the mayor, and I think it was very successful. And our students in City of Half Moon Bay deeply appreciate it. We got good responses from them, good results. So what's the next step here? Do you want to continue to approve it? Yes, Michelle, I'm sorry.
Thank you for the background.
I think we all got up too early this morning.
I think you did a really good staff report. We'll just let it go for council discussion at this point.
Perfect. You did your homework. So the award would be for standing achievements in leadership. Middle school freshmen, sophomore, juniors would receive $100. The senior would receive $500. The impact would be, the fiscal impact would be $900. The application would be due on May the 9th. Available on the city website if approved tonight. Students nominated by teachers. Applications would be validated by the selection committee. Awardees would receive the scholarship on May 29th. And I just wanted to read an email, if you allow me, from one of the counselors regarding this program, which I think will maybe help you with your decision. She had mentioned it was a welcome addition to their local scholarship program last year. It awarded students to contribute to their school and their community in ways that sometimes go unnoticed and unrecognized. The award did not focus on perfect grades or outstanding accomplishments in the athletics, but rather in recognizing strong community members and leaders. Additionally, it recognizes underclassmen who are often passed over. And it encourages those younger students to continue with good citizenship throughout their high school years. They appreciate your support for this program. And she also mentioned a senior recipient last year, Emily Ruiz Torres. She went on to study at Mount St. Mary's College in Los Angeles. She was the first in her family to attend college and has always been an outstanding school and community member. So.
Thank you. It's a real tribute to that initiative that we started last year. So what's the pleasure of the council? Councilman Qualcheck.
So I want to thank the council for supporting this initiative last year. It was, I was always humbled as the mayor last year to being out in the community, but one of the most humbling experiences was to be able to give out this award at scholarship night at the high school. And when Emily received a first-time college student in her family received the award, and she collected a few that night. Talented young woman, and it was the right thing for us to participate in that and support the community. I'm certainly going to suggest we continue this. I'm going to ask the council if they're comfortable with this financial level of the senior award. It's currently at $500.
It's the same as it was last year? Yeah, I could support what we did last year. I think it was well worthwhile and appreciated, and we can afford it.
So may I make a motion?
Yes, please.
So I move to approve the continuance of the City of Half Moon Bay Leadership Award Program.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? It looks like quickly we'll have to put together this committee to go through the applications, and I appreciate that. So if not, we'll have a roll call vote on the money item, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, so ordered. And did I miss out this evening? Do we have some scouts in the room here that have been very patient with us? Thank you very much. Now, are you doing a study project for your scouting? You're welcome to make a comment at the podium if you would like to. Come to the podium, please. We'll get a little... Yes, and please give us your name and address, please.
Sorry, I'm Jim Shaw. I actually just came here to see what was going on in this city council meeting. I was actually curious, but yeah, I was interested in what happened with the J measure. I'd heard of from it with my friend comes frequently, so that's really why I'm here.
Very good. Thank you for your interest in leadership. Yes, may I ask your age and where do you go to school, please?
I'm 13 and I go to Seagrass School.
Very good. Thank you very much for participating tonight in our meeting, and your family. Your mom was very patient, and I don't know if it's your brother also there, but hang in there and keep up the good leadership skills.
Thank you.
And I guess on a positive, wonderful note tonight, our deputy city manager is a new dad, and so Alex has a new baby girl out there in the world, and here Alex was a big football player, but now he's going to have to get that little girl out there to play softball with Coach Dio, but she'll probably still be around. But thank all of you for coming, and thank you staff, and Lieutenant in Charge, thank you for coming this evening, and hopefully we'll all get to see each other real soon. So, meeting adjourned.
May 31st.